Dreams do come true. So kids, what's your dream?
What was this new? So bright, colorful and new. Sometimes it feels hard, but you don't wanna give up.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
You can see my dream?
Of course, because I too had a dream. Some days I dreamt of becoming a tennis player and some days a cricketer. To make their dreams real tomorrow, you need financial planning today. Choose from a range of child plans from Aegis Federal Life Insurance and help your child dream big.
Hello and welcome. Today my guest, one of India's greatest ever athletes who has been an inspiration to me in several ways. He's younger to me, but he's been an inspiration and a very close friend of mine for more than a decade now. Abhinav Bindra, 2008 Beijing, all of us will remember. Till 2008, India have been competing in the Olympic Games from the 1920 Games onwards. So for about 88 years, we did not have a single individual gold medal. We'd won gold medals in hockey, in team sport, but individual gold was still eluding us. And this is in the able-bodied games. I'm not mentioning para games here. And it was the first time in Beijing when Abhinav broke that ceiling and got us the Holy Grail. And since then, you are now seeing a Neeraj Chopra. You have seen transformation across Indian Olympic sport at the administrative and also the sporting level. So in that sense, Abhinav has been the beacon, the torchbearer who helped in this transformation. Abhinav, welcome. My first question to you. First question is, you participated in Sydney, a young teenager, then Athens, made the final, then came close because of the footboard story. I'll ask you about that. But then finally it happened in Beijing. So it took about a 10-year period for you to go to becoming Olympic champion. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Thank you for having me. Yes, of course, I had a long career in sport, as you said, Boria, 20 odd years competing at the highest level. And if I look back at that career, and if two things stand out, it was number one, learning to fail well, because much of my career was about failure and learning to deal with it, learning to let go of the unwanted baggage that failure brought, but learning from each event and learning from each experience and incorporating the learnings from each competition or from each tournament and trying to be better than what I was yesterday. The number two thing was about embracing continuous change. I was an athlete who competed at 5 Olympic Games, but I was a completely different person at each of these games. You said that, I competed, my first games were in Sydney. I was a 17-year-old boy. My motivations were different. My philosophy was different. Athens, my approach was completely different. Beijing, I changed completely, and so on and so forth. There was, of course, a physical change. I was a growing boy from the 17-year-old to a 35-year-old old man who competed at Rio. The body was transforming, and which needed completely transform. It needed a lot of adaptation from my end. The body was also transforming, which needed several corrections along the way, because it's a sport. You put a lot of load on one side of the body, it creates imbalances, and you have to do continuous amount of work to adapt to the changing body, which is something pretty unique to sport. But most importantly, the most important thing was that I was also changing as a person. My mindset was changing as a person. I was evolving as a person. My perceptions on situations, how I looked at sport was also changing, which meant that I also had to continuously change and continuously adapt to the changing me, which was, I think, very, very important during this course of this long journey. So having that self-awareness that, I was changing as a human being. change is the only constant in life, and one has to have that self-awareness that, how I approach things as a 17-year-old will be completely irrelevant when I approached my last Olympic Games at Rio. So having that self-awareness, that day-to-day self-awareness, that things will continuously change, and having that flexibility in mindset to be able to adapt. Of course, you have to change when things are not going well. When you have failure, you obviously have to tinker and change things. But in sport and in my career, I think, and you see it in a lot of other successful athletes, you also have to have the courage to embrace change even when things are going well. And that is precisely what I did in many parts of my career. You mentioned 2004, although I didn't win a medal in 2004, it was a time in my career I was at my best. If I look back at those 20 odd years in sport, that was a time I was in the best shape and competing. My performances in competition were really effortless to a great degree. And I was having tremendous success. But I made that a very hard decision after 2004, and that was to completely rejig my technique and to completely change it, even when everything was falling in place. Yes, that change was very difficult because for a couple of years I won absolutely nothing and I struggled. But when I look back, it was one of the key decisions that I took, which was responsible for my success in Beijing.
How did you deal with failure?
Well, number one rule is that you're allowed to be grumpy and you're allowed to whine about it for one day. But after you get over that one day, you have to get back on the saddle. You have to look back and learn from things that could have done. You could have done better. Things that I could have prepared better, things that I could have taken into consideration, into taking some verticals out of the equation in the phase of preparation. But most importantly, it is important to then come back to the present moment, because again, human nature is as such that we spend a lot of time either living in the past or worrying about the future, and we fail to live in the present moment. But the reality really is the present moment. It is about reorienting yourself to this present moment, which is the only truth that really exists, and trying to give it your best. While I had Olympic successes, the big goals that I had set in my career, it only came once in 4 years. So I think what is very important when you do fail and when you have to look ahead to get better and to try and succeed in the future, is also set smaller goals along the way. That I think is a very, very important part of that whole process of overcoming failure and building towards the next big success. You have to set smaller goals. You have to acknowledge those smaller goals when they are achieved. Pat yourself on the back, because that gives you the continuous motivation required to keep going. Because, whenever you are trying to achieve something big, it is going to take its natural course of time. It may not happen overnight, but you have to show up to work every day. I had to show up to training every day with the same enthusiasm and the same energy that an Olympic competition would have brought. So you also have to learn to really basically fall in love with the boring and the mundane. You have to learn to enjoy the process. You have to learn to find joy in effort. And that is the key. When you start to do that, I think you're able to bring in your A game every day, to work every day. And that really eventually leads to the success that you are looking at. And that is precisely what I did. For me, the Olympics did not come once every 4 years. They came every day. It was about showing up to training when nobody was watching, and being completely accountable to myself at the end of every training day. Before I went to bed, I had to look myself into the mirror and ask myself the question, did I put in my best? Have I given it my best today? And the days I did, I always had a good night's sleep. And that is something extremely powerful. It is extremely powerful, not just for the process of achieving your collective dreams or collective goals. It is so empowering for everybody as human beings, as individuals, because what you're essentially doing is you're building a tremendous amount of self-respect for your own self. and that is something which again is something extremely important and useful in your own personal journeys to have no regrets. And you'll have no regrets when you just are able to give it your best shot every day with all honesty and all integrity.
What you decided to do, create a foundation, give it back to sport, create a facility in Chandigarh where people can come and train, create champions of tomorrow, running from one part of the country to the other, building awareness about Olympic movement, Olympic education. You're more busy now than maybe when you were playing. Talk to me about that.
I received so much from my sports career that, I just feel such a moral obligation to be able to have to contribute and give back to society. It is something which is very, very important to me as a person, and it is something which is extremely fulfilling in nature to be able to try and help, to be able to build, try and assist young athletes in their journeys. So the foundation has been active for more than 10 years. Of course, we have three pillars of our work. The first pillar is the pillar of intervention, where we have about 70 or 80, around 80 odd athletes under our roster. We give a scholarship program called STEAM, STEAM standing for Science, Technology, Engineering, Analytics, and Medicine. And we incorporate all those elements in athlete training, grassroots athlete training. Majority of our athletes are between the ages of 12 and 16. Because that is the time when athletes really need that support. That is the time when athletes need that strong foundation. And these athletes, may not get me results in the next 8 years. And that's absolutely fine. But we are trying to build champions for the future. And we are trying to assist them with absolute global best practice when they start out. So that is something very important to me in this scholarship program. Another project under intervention is a project called Sport for Her. It is something dedicated, a platform dedicated to the female athlete, fostering more girls to play sport, but really empowering them with knowledge and assisting them in their journeys in sport. The third project under intervention is a project called Sport for Life, where we offer 100 free surgeries to athletes who may get injured. We have so many athletes, not the well-known athletes, but athletes who may not have made it or may not have been successful, but do get injured and have no places to go. And sometimes that could be the absolute end of their career. So we offer 100 free surgeries. We've built around 30 odd centers of excellences across the country where we have surgeons, a network of surgeons where athletes are able to get these surgeries. And then, of course, we look after their transition back to sport, their whole aspect of rehab in our centers as well. The second pillar of our work is education. We have an institute where we give master's and bachelor's degrees in physiotherapy and sports science. We have a faculty from across the world really trying to bring in global best practice in knowledge and in making, empowering the whole ecosystem that surrounds the athlete. That is, I think, equally an important aspect to build as we develop sport in India. The work that we do with Aegis Federal is work on athlete mental wellness and athlete mental health, something that I am passionate about personally, given my own challenges in my sport career, given the work that I have done with the International Olympic Committee on mental health and performance, the psychological aspect of sport. And there we have under this program that in the last quarter, about 40 odd athletes have benefited from 8 disciplines, undergone more than 100 odd sessions for mental health. But really, the idea is to create psychologically safe environments for athletes to compete and train in. And we're very, very grateful for the support that we've received from Aegis Federal for this particular project, and we're really looking to scale it up and take it to the next level going forward. The last pillar of our work is using the power of sport for social good, and our current project under that is bringing the Olympic Value Education Program to India. Currently, we have a program running in 100 schools in Orissa, in Bhubaneswar and Rourkela. About 35,000 kids enrolled in this program, where kids play sport, kids experience sport, many of them for the first time in their lives, to of course achieve health benefits, to of course enjoy sport, but most importantly, imbibe sporting values, imbibe the values of Olympism, of friendship, of respect, of excellence, of building teamwork, of building honesty, of building integrity, of learning to win, but more importantly, learning to lose, about learning a lot about respect, about learning to respect rules, but more also learning to respect competitors, about learning to respect your own self. And sport really becomes a way of life for them and a metaphor for life for them, where they're able to, learn a lot of life skills through play. And this is something which is the project is going really well. We have many heartwarming stories coming out of it. One such story is, which we didn't really anticipate, is about gender equality. 15,000 girls are playing sport, many of them for the first time. But in the past, before we started this program, girls hardly ever ventured out into PE classes and preferred to stay in their classrooms. But since the program has started, and the nature of the program is to make girls and boys play sport together, to have mixed sport and mixed teams. So they're firstly playing sport. The most heartwarming thing is that, of course, the girls have become more confident, but the respect for girls has become far more. The boys are respecting girls much more than before. An interesting story came out where we recently had inter-school competition or a school competition in sport, where the boys nominated a girl to become the captain of their school team. Girls taking up leadership roles as well. And this is something which we are very passionate about, because I think this is something important to build for our young society. We have such a young demographic in our country, and all of these kids need to imbibe certain values, and there's no better way than sport to imbibe these values. As a nation, we're all after economic success, and it is very interesting to note that the global economic superpowers also happen to be sporting superpowers, and I believe that they've become economic superpowers because sport has played a very important role in their upbringing. The values that they've been able to imbibe and then take them and use them in different verticals of their life. So this is what we do.
Abhinav, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Look forward to many more. Thank you for your time.